Hola, welcome. You are listening to Socially Speaking on WVLP LP 98.3 Valparaiso, Indiana. My name is Tracy Traut, and I'm your co-host along with Kathy Sipple. Morning.
Good morning, Tracy. I'm very happy to be here. Kathy Sipple here, and last week, if you were listening in, our show was about sustainability, and part of that was energy conservation. So that led me to thinking, wouldn't it be interesting to think about how we individually need to look at our own energy system and kind of conserve, optimize, take care of our own energy? And so therefore, I've invited Dr. Mark Zaranski, actually. Mark holds a PhD in chemistry from the University of South Carolina and also is a licensed acupuncture and Chinese medicine specialist who is partial owner, or with his wife, Laura, at Eastwind Acupuncture. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Tracy, for having me this morning.
And, you know, again, I kind of outlined the main idea that got me thinking of why to have you here is about that whole energy thing. Can you just tell our listeners, for those people listening who have never experienced acupuncture or unfamiliar with Eastern medicine, what is qi?
Qi. Qi doesn't have an equivalent word in English, and so we just use the word qi. Qi has 11 definitions. The number one definition is actually vital vapor, and in modern times we call this vital vapor oxygen, and as we all know, you can't live without it. All right. Oxygen in your body is what converts all of our food into energy and substance that we can use. So that's the most vital substance we have, is that oxygen. Now, the other definitions of qi include the ones people are most familiar with. Life force energy. And in modern times, we seem to have a crossover between the Chinese qi and the jargon mojo. My chi's not working for me today. My mojo's not working for me today.
I like that. Thank you, Austin Powers, for that.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But that's not a literal translation. But chi is the energy that runs through our bodies and holds it all together. Mm-hmm. And there is chi in everything. So the vibrational energy that we have in rocks, you could think of as being the rock's chi.
Very cool. Very cool. So how does acupuncture work with qi, or what does one have to do with another?
Acupuncture, which is one half of one of 8 modalities in Chinese medicine, but the one that most people recognize, is a method of directly interacting with the energy of the body to move it, to slow it down, to speed it up, to stop it, to initiate it. We do this by using very thin filaments of metal, mostly, needles, right? Yeah, but they're tiny.
Much better filaments. I like that.
Well, there are several different kinds of needles that we use. The one that we would insert into the body to interact with the qi is called a filiform needle, which means it's made out of a filament. Okay. The needles that we use in practice are 1/4 of a millimeter in diameter. They're very, very small. They're on par with what a mosquito nails you with.
Okay. So it's not really a shot kind of feeling like a vaccination shot. It's more of a quick little...
Right. And in many cases, different places in the body, people don't actually feel the needles enter the body at all. Closer to fingers and toes, there's some sensation.
And I'll just, in the interest of full disclosure, I have received acupuncture at Eastwind, so I have had direct experience with what it feels like. And I remember you describing it as not it's not without sensation, but it does not equal pain either. Most of the time, I mean, it's more of, you can feel it, but it's just actually I found it kind of gentle and a little bit soothing, which you wouldn't necessarily think if you've never tried it. So, but anyway, when you're inserting those different filaments or needles, whatever you want to call it, how do you choose where to go? What's the situation there? And how do you know what the heck to do?
Well, first, there are very specific anatomical places on the body that we put needles to get specific effects. Those places generally have to do with bundles of nerve endings and capillaries that are off to the side of major thoroughfares, arteries, big nerves, these kinds of things. These bundles, and we'll call it a plexus, that plexus acts as a valve that you can turn up or turn down, turn on or turn off, and that affects the flow through the adjacent vessel.
So Tracy here, if you don't mind being looped into this, Tracy.
Nope.
My poor co-host, Tracy, last week she was not feeling well, and this week I saw she had a pain patch on her shoulder.
3, actually. 3.
And so if you have a pain on your left shoulder, does that always equate to, hey, from extreme tension? So let's all take a deep cleansing breath. And, so if you have pain in your shoulder, does the source always necessarily originate at the shoulder, or might it be from somewhere else? I mean, what might be causing Tracy's pain?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Kathy. Most of the time, unless you've got a direct trauma to that area, things show up not where they originate. In your car, you have a check engine light. When the check engine light comes on, does that mean that you should focus on the check engine light? How do I turn my check engine light off? No, it's an indicator that something's wrong somewhere else. Tracy is suffering from extreme tension, and as I'm sure all of our listeners know, when you start to feel tense, your shoulders head towards your ears. If you think about the picture of the tense guy, he's got his shoulders all bunched up and his chin's down into his collarbone. The reason is that's the position that you assume when you're threatened. If somebody is going to throttle you, you need to get rid of your neck. So you hide it between your shoulders and you put your chin down.
It's a tough gig here at WVLP, Greg. Greg's been throttling us all morning.
Right.
Just kidding, Greg.
Right, but it's the same response that we've had ever since. When you're trying to protect yourself, you curl up into a ball so that the bear can't eviscerate you. Okay? And the same thing happens now. You get too much stress and you'll find somebody curled up in the fetal position in the corner of their office.
And usually not from a bear.
Not from a bear.
In northwest Indiana.
Right. But the bear might be the boss on the phone. I want to see you in my office. It might be somebody who just moved into your lane without signaling and forced you onto the shoulder. These kinds of things.
Or the bear might be the type A voice inside your head, Mark.
Sometimes the bear is the voice inside of our head.
And, just
speaking for myself.
There's a lot of things assaulting us, though, during an average day. Like, you get up and, you start breathing air that may or may not really be all that pure. You eat food that may or may not be all that pure. I mean, there's just a lot of different things beyond the human interaction, environmental type things. I mean, what do you find are some of the primary causes that that bring people to you?
Well, most people when they come to us have already been trying to deal with their issues for a long time, and they're typically at the end of their rope. What started the problem is always the same. It's always stress and trauma. Stress and trauma are really the same thing on different time scales. Stress goes on and on and on, and it can be a little bit at a time. Trauma is usually in a brief period, sometimes instantaneous. Now, of stress and trauma, the same thing, there are 3 different flavors. There's the physical, with which we are most familiar with and easiest to understand. When you walk into your desk, you can get a bruise at your hip. Okay, this was a trauma that happened. And what is a bruise? A bruise, Mom used to call it a black and blue, right? Okay, so that's because of the color that's under the skin. Kathy, what causes that color under the skin?
I don't have any idea.
Tracy?
Broken blood vessels.
Broken blood vessel.
That come up, and then that's where you get the discoloration from until the body absorbs it, I think.
No, that's very good.
Okay.
So you've got blood that's outside of the blood vessel.
Yes.
If it's outside of the blood vessel, it's not going to flow through there. So now we've got blood that's pooled up and stagnant. Typically, from that same trauma, getting hit in the hip, you might have a lump there. You might have some swelling. Well, that swelling is going to push against blood vessels that aren't broken and might occlude them so that the blood can't flow through there. So now we have what's called stagnation.
Wow.
Stagnation of blood is going to cause a pain that feels sharp. Stagnation of energy, if it's the energy flow that got blocked, means things aren't going to work very well. Energy handles our communication in our body. Blood handles deliveries. It's the transportation system. It delivers oxygen, which we call chi. It delivers nutrients. It takes away waste products. It delivers hormones. So now the deliveries have stopped, and this is a problem. Okay? So this would be a physical trauma causing pain, and we can see the result in this bruise. Okay. Now, I said there were 3 flavors. The next most common that we see has to do with chemical trauma and chemical stress. Now, as you alluded to, we do have a lot of chemical stress on a daily basis. We live in what's thought of as a polluted area, air-wise, so there's a little bit of that going on every day. And then, like, what's in our water? What's on our food? What did they add? What just fell there? Yeah.
Oop, don't get me started.
What was in the soil where it grew? Okay. And then there's the things that they add to our food to make it more appealing or to give it longer shelf life. So we've got preservatives, MSG, flavor enhancers, coloring, these kinds of things. So we've got that. And then there's the things that we knowingly or unknowingly put into our body ourselves. Let's say analgesics or pharmaceuticals or too much red wine or recreational drugs, all of those things. So depending on how much and how fast would determine if it's a stress or a trauma. 3 flavors, that means there's 1 left. And it's the one that most of us think of when we say the word stress. Kathy, when Tracy calls you up on a day and says, Kathy, I'm so stressed, do you think that means she's about to get hit by a car or make a bad food choice?
I don't think Tracy would do that, number one, which is maybe the cause of the stress. Because
we just haven't gotten that close yet.
Okay.
You wait.
She's usually still smiling, but yeah, no, I wouldn't think she's going to get hit by a car.
No.
Probably not a immediate kind of a thing.
Right. And typically when somebody is saying they're so stressed, it usually has to do with something going on emotionally, and those things mostly have to do with other people, right? My blank, my kids are driving me crazy, my boss is being a jerk, my significant other is unsupportive. It usually has to do with other people. Now, I have had somebody say to me, no. That's not what my stress is about. As a matter of fact, there aren't any people in my life. Well, that one's easy. That's lack of people.
Who does not have people?
Right, but they're so lonely that causes them stress. And their stress then is about people, but it's lack of people.
Okay, just the craving the interaction, that kind of thing.
And I've also had somebody else tell me that their stress was all about money. And I said, well, what do you need money for? He goes, well, I got a wife, I got 4 kids. I said, well, there's your people.
There's your people.
Yeah.
Right. It's what you owe those people.
Right.
Sure. So those are the things that cause us our problems, stress and trauma.
And we do actually have an online question, and we probably should mention that we have the ability to take your
Absolutely.
questions. Tracy, do you want to tell them how they can reach us?
You can reach us several ways. One is you can reach us via our Facebook page, which is Socially Speaking. So you can sign on to Facebook, and you can find us, which our page is Socially Speaking, and you can post a question there.
And I think it's actually facebook.com/Socially Speaking WVLP.
Great. So. That's why we have Kathy here, because she's like my expert on all
these.
She
created the page.
She knows where all these things are. You soon will be able to email us. They haven't changed our email over yet, Kathy, so pretty soon you'll be able to do that. And you can Twitter either Kathy or I. I'm on Twitter. Kathy's on Twitter. I don't think we have Socially Speaking Twitter. I don't think Kathy and I can maintain all of these social media sites. But you can Twitter Kathy. I'm T. Traut on Twitter. And what are you, Kathy?
And I'm Kathy Sipple.
You're Kathy Sipple.
All one word, no spaces.
Please feel free to do that. And I'm going to take a quick moment here and remind you that you are listening to WVLP LP 98.3 Valparaiso, Indiana. You are listening to Socially Speaking with Tracy Traut and Kathy Sipple. Our guest today is Mark Zaranski, and Mark is the co-owner with his wife of East Wind Acupuncture. We also want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Uptown Cafe. Uptown Cafe is an eco-responsible specialty coffee, tea, and soda bar with a dynamic food menu set in a fusion of modern and classic design. Uptown is located at 1400 East Lincoln Way in Valparaiso, Indiana. I would also like to remind you that anyone who is looking to do anything good with their money, please feel free to contact Greg Kovach here at the station. He's the station manager. Or, if you're interested, you can also sponsor Kathy Sipple and I on Socially Speaking. That would be terrific.
And we need an intern.
And we need an intern. Kathy and I are looking for an intern. Any college students out there, if you know of any college students who'd like to come in and help us engineer and as well as post things while we're talking and generally work with Kathy and I on guests and the show.
Doing the production, so you'd learn. I mean, it would be great if you already have radio experience,
Absolutely.
but we do have training available as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just to throw it out there to widen the net, you don't have to be a college student. You can be an underemployed adult or really anybody. If you're retired and have some extra time, or if you're a busy person with a flexible schedule, anybody at all, we'd love to have.
And Kathy and I are loads of fun.
We are.
So you can be here every Monday morning with us. And you can contact us about the internship via any of those little ways, and I will try to get the email straightened out, Kathy, between now and
then.
So,
we'll get there.
Online questions.
Yeah, we do.
It's our first online question.
We have an online question from Angelina Jansen, and she would like to know how acupuncture could help with detoxing.
That's a great question. Detoxification is a normal process in the body. In all living things, you need to get rid of what's not good. The number one thing that we think of on a normal daily basis would be elimination. We take a lot of things.
Such a nice way to say it.
Thank you. We take a lot of things into our body generally through the mouth, and it's the body's purpose to sort out the good from the bad, leave the bad in the tube and eject it, but also in the cells, when we use our nutrients to create energy, etc., there's stuff left over. These are waste products. Most familiar to people would be lactic acid builds up in muscles, and also from the breakdown of protein, we'll get urea, which is in urine. So these things have to be transported away from the site of production to sites of collection, filtration, and elimination. So this would typically be the large intestine and the bladder where these things would end up. Now, by promoting that function of proper elimination, one can enhance the detoxification of the body. There are other methods of elimination other than through feces and urine. Sweat is a way of getting things out of the body, and a lot of people might be familiar with, either for themselves or someone else, that someone is sweating out alcohol. Or
I've never experienced that, Mark. I won't admit to it if I have.
I've seen it happen. I've seen some very interesting things happen. But sweat is a way of getting things out of the body, and sometimes you would even notice in yourself that your sweat smells different. The sweat that involves fear smells different than...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
so that smell of fear, it's not just
no, it's a real
metaphor,
smell.
It's a real smell.
Right.
What does it smell like?
It smells like fear. It doesn't smell like anything else.
Right.
But once you smell it, you go, oh, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Now, interestingly, one of our diagnostic techniques in traditional Chinese medicine involves using the nose. Modern hygiene throws a big kink at that one. But back in the day, it was pretty normal, and you can smell different types of dysfunction on the body because it's affecting different organs, and when they're malfunctioning, they might have a specific kind of smell that you would throw off.
Okay.
Soap and water usually gets rid of that. So we don't get to use that as often now as we used to.
And we kind of like that, actually.
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, especially in close quarters like this.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad.
So by to get back to Angelina's question, by enhancing the body's ability to get rid of things, we can go through detoxification. Now, there are some specific ways that we would enhance this. For chemicals that enter the body, the number one place that these are filtered, processed, eliminated is, well, does anybody here know?
Kidneys?
Well, kidneys are number one filter,
okay.
But for chemicals specifically, let's say, yes, that's right, Tracy. If we go back to alcohol, if we think about the organ most damaged, it's the liver.
Makes sense.
The liver is the chemical factory of the body. Not only does it get rid of chemicals, but it makes most of the chemicals that we use. All right, so it's the do everything place. By enhancing the ability or the function or the way that the liver is working, we can promote additional detoxification.
So what would be the primary causes that, let's see, a two-part question, makes us the opposite of detoxification? Would that be toxification? Is that even a word?
Yeah, sure.
And what are the blocks within our body without, some help from acupuncture or something else that prevent us from getting rid of that through natural means?
Well, the biggest routes to toxification have to do with what we put into our bodies. Now, that which we're exposed to in a normal environmental way, those can accumulate and turn out to be something. If we have a strange environment, let's say our environment is a chemical processing plant, or we're into some type of hazardous waste all the time and we're standing around in that, well, you're going to get a lot more in than would say Tracy or I would if we weren't doing that. So the majority, for most people who don't have those kinds of occupational exposures, or they aren't living next to that place, or they aren't drinking from a well that comes from underneath that place, for most of us, it's what we throw down the hatch. So to avoid getting a lot of extra chemicals, many people now are choosing to raise their own food, to garden and not put stuff on there, or if they don't have that opportunity, they might buy from those who do. No-spray farmers, organic farmers, this kind of thing. I can't tell you how important it is to do this. It's so important because when you're trying to eat, the purpose should be to do good for your body, to nourish your body. When you're putting a lot of chemicals in, you're doing the opposite. Now, for those who are toxic, the results start to show up after the body is no longer able to handle the toxic load that's being put in. Everybody's familiar with the concept of being overwhelmed, right?
Oh, I think so.
Okay. When you're overwhelmed, you almost get to the point of being paralyzed. You have so much to do, you can't do anything.
You're in the headlights kind of feeling.
Right, you shut down.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing can happen to that liver. It's been plugging away. If it's not getting everything it needs and able to get rid of the stuff that it ends up with, eventually, instead of being able to break things down and eliminate them, it gets to the point where it can no longer break them down, so then it begins to just hold on to them, just accumulate them. And once the liver has accumulated enough stuff and it doesn't have any other place to put it, then it hides them in the body. Once it can't do that, well, it doesn't know what to do, and it suddenly can't deal with those toxins. The best thing somebody can do at that point is they need to get their liver back to working the way it's supposed to. To begin that, you have to clean the thing out. You have to get rid of all of that junk that accumulated. One of the best ways to do that is cleansing. Now, there's a lot of different ways to cleanse that don't really require money. You're going to be eating anyway, so eat the things that do this. Some cleansing involves not really eating, but instead getting nutrients in another way, maybe through juicing, or maybe through, there's something called the Master Cleanse that listeners can research. Very interesting and very effective. Not for everybody, but because it involves getting your sustenance without chewing, and some people are addicted to chewing their stuff. One would, for a length of time, 3, 10, maybe 40 days, exist on a liquid diet that includes all the things that you need and yet has ingredients that help purge toxins from the body. So this is a really great way to go, and there are lots of cleanses that you can look up.
Can I throw out just a fun fact? My neighbor at the community garden plot, Marilyn, I ran into her yesterday, and I had seen a post that she put out on Facebook about green smoothies. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's actually today, August 15th, is International Green Smoothie Day.
Wow.
Interesting. So
right.
Here we are talking right on topic about, I don't know if that's exactly the same thing, but it's, I think, about putting cleansing, vegetables actually in with your morning fruit smoothie to kind of help with the detox.
Absolutely. Now, I will tell you, green leafy vegetables, especially darker green leafy vegetables,
like spinach or kale or something.
Spinach, kale, beet tops, all those good things have strong cleansing properties. Now, for those who are listening and thinking about doing some cleansing, if you're just looking at a regular daily cleansing routine, cleanse in the morning. Build your body afternoon, but in the morning, cleansing, and fruits are cleansing. And a lot of times people say, oh, yeah, well, pears specifically will promote the function of the large intestine, your biggest elimination organ that's internal. Skin is your biggest elimination organ that's external. Okay? So cleanse in the morning. Some fruit juices, add spinach in there, that's easy to do, or beet tops. It's still a great time of year to get beet tops, and they're delicious, a little sweeter than spinach, and they don't leave that feel on your teeth. So those kinds of things can help a lot.
And I'll admit, I've not yet made a green smoothie, but I could probably try it. You sneak it into things, and it might be fine. But
yeah, I mean, I drink my breakfast every morning, so basically because I was skipping breakfast, and so I had to figure out a way to take my vitamins and not skip breakfast. So I blend every morning, but mine's mostly, the cheap, easy way. So maybe I do put fruit in there, but I've never put anything green in there. So a little bit of protein powder and, some yogurt, some milk, some fruit. So I'll try putting green things in there. See if I can drink that in the morning.
I'm sure the listeners do appreciate, some not additional cost type of things that they can do.
Well, it's sitting in my vegetable drawer anyway, so I might as well just figure out how to incorporate it. I mean, a lot of that stuff is already in your refrigerator, truthfully.
Right, and for those that don't have it and are time challenged and want something that goes a little quicker, you can find products that you can add, like freeze-dried powdered chlorella, which is an algae product. This has incredible antioxidants mixed with cleansing things, so this is a great thing to put into your body.
Sprinkle it in there.
Yeah, you pop a spoon in and stir it up. It's like a blue-green algae.
Like, kind of like that, your approach seems to be very holistic. It's not just come and let us put needles in you. It's, we're going to peel back the onion and look at, what's going on under the hood, back to your car analogy, and just take a look at what kind of gas are you putting in there, or have you got an oil change,
But, I think you could go in and you could see Mark and you could do acupuncture, but if you're not, I run a mental health center, it's sort of like therapy. You can come in and sit down and talk to somebody, but unless you're really willing to get to the bottom, and I was not being funny when I said the bear is inside your head. Your whole analogy of the shoulders and whatever else, that's when I said yoga has been off. That's where people are pushing my shoulders down and, getting that out. And I think if you're not willing to look at what are you putting into your body and your mind and your soul every day, Mark can do whatever he wants. I can take all the vitamins I want. Some of this stuff that's getting stored up in my body needs to get out.
We have to take responsibility for ourselves, Tracy.
Yes.
And, our society has gotten to the point where we always want to give somebody else, well, it's not my fault.
Well, yeah. No, my shoulders being tense are exactly my fault.
And that is kind of the tangential idea that made me think this was appropriate for Socially Speaking, because it is about social. So you think, well, what does acupuncture and chi have to do with social? But I do feel like if we don't take responsibility for our own body's energy, for our own personal space, then it's really hard to go out in the world and be, some beacon of light or be some positive influence in the community. So that was kind of what I wanted us to take a look at.
Excellent.
So,
Tracy brought up something that reminds me that I was remiss when you were asking about things we can do to detoxify. Probably the thing that you can do best all the time and might have the biggest positive effect for you would be proper breathing. Proper breathing. Yeah, Americans by far are shallow chest breathers. We only use about the top 25% of our lungs. One of the things that I'm sure that you learn and they drill into you while you're doing yoga, Tracy, is proper breathing. This would be abdominal breathing, where we push our diaphragm down instead of heaving our ribs up.
Right.
Exactly.
And this gives you a little massage on your organs and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. When one's breathing properly, their chest holds still, and when they inhale, their belly extends, and when they exhale, their belly goes back in.
Listeners through a little.
You know, I was a singer for a long time, and so one of the things that they teach you when you're singing is that you're not breathing from here. You have to breathe from down here, and you have to really be able to expand that. And once I stopped singing and got busy with my life, it wasn't until I went back to yoga that I realized that I had forgotten every good habit I'd ever been taught about how you're supposed to breathe, because I was not doing it. And then I'm sitting in yoga one day and I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly what you should be thinking in yoga. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, stop with the breathing already. You know, which is not really what you're supposed to be thinking in yoga. And this is when I was like, all right, Tracy Traut, we got to get control here. But when you do breathe properly, you can actually put up with more of sort of the screaming of your muscles when you first go into yoga, because you do get into positions, but what you realize is if you can, they talk about lengthening that breath, and you can talk more about that, Mark, but lengthening that breath, when you are able to lengthen that and really get in the zone with it, your body does start to relax, even though you feel like your muscle is giving a little, it's squeaking at you. But if you can really get into that, man, your body will go places you never thought it would go.
That's true. I've been a long time absentee from yoga, and I need to get back. But I noticed that sometimes the first time that you try to go into a pose, you get so far. You know, like ragdoll pose or something. It's just bending over basically from the hips and letting your arms go limp and go down toward the floor. And my fingers normally wouldn't touch the floor on the first go-round, but then you'd take another breath, and you lean into it, and you're exactly right. That breath does take you places that you weren't able to go just the breath before. So, bringing it back to acupuncture and qi, how does breath work with acupuncture and also blood? I want to bring blood into it, because blood is what transfers the qi through your body, correct? So that is correct. That's what you're working to detoxify to begin with, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so how does that work? How is that all involved?
All right, what we say is that the blood carries the qi, but it's the qi that moves the blood. Okay, the qi is the motivator, the blood is the medium.
Okay.
And as you know, we take oxygen in the lungs. The blood is oxygenated, gets pumped throughout the body, delivers the oxygen to the cells, has to carry the carbon dioxide, one of our chief waste products, back to the lungs to be exhaled. Also, the blood picks up the other waste products of the cell, the urea, the lactic acid, all of those things get transported back to places like the kidneys, where they're filtered out, put into the liquid waste stream. Sometimes they're put back. Certain wastes, after being processed, let's say by the liver, are delivered back into the alimentary canal, the intestinal system, for ejection that way. Sometimes we'll have it ejected through the skin, in the sweat, in the tears, whatever. Actually, the normal routes are usually the most socially acceptable. You don't want things running out of your eyes or ears, although in drastic cases that does happen.
You take it where you can get it.
The body needs to get rid of it. It's got to get out. Even if you think about it, a boil, a pimple, what is that? That's not really a skin problem. That's stuff from the inside that your body's trying to get rid of. So just putting something, like if somebody has acne problems, just trying to put something on the pimple itself isn't going to fix the problem.
You're not going to the root. You're just going to the result.
Right.
Basically.
And you really need to eliminate the toxins from the inside. So sometimes detoxification can change a skin condition in a big way.
I actually did read on that green smoothie board. They had different testimonials from people, and I got to say, I've not tried it. They're not our sponsor. I don't know too much about it. But there was a woman who actually said that her teenage son had tried green smoothies, and it cleared up acne. So it's interesting to use that example. Well,
I have 3 teenagers, but we do treat acne from the inside. We we had a client who brought us a nephew, and with constantly painful cystic acne. And they'd been to dermatologist after dermatologist, and they were getting nowhere. We worked from the inside, and it was amazing transformation. In 2 weeks, we were able to make such a huge difference. First off, his pain was gone, and then external appearance changed dramatically.
And then you're probably standing up straighter and breathing better because you feel better, about your overall, look, and self-confidence probably rises. So it is all cyclical, isn't it?
It is, and the lack of pain helps a lot, too.
Sure, yeah.
He told me, this kid told me it hurt to wear a shirt.
Right. Yeah. Tracy looks great today, as she always does, but I can tell that you've got a little something going on.
Yep.
And it's like, it's kind of just, you see it around people's eyes. Maybe your eyes aren't as sparkly, and, not trying to pick on Tracy.
Because some of your energy is then going into your body is sort of fighting, I guess, my word, of whatever that is, and don't want to pick on my family too much, but I think this is the direct result of a little too much extended family time yesterday. But it is a process of I didn't get it out. So whatever I was taking in, and I mean the energy from other people, I think that you have to be conscious of what you're putting in your body, and it's not just what we're drinking or what we're eating. It's what you're absorbing from your environment.
It's what you're watching on the
television.
Emotionally, everything.
Exactly. I just had my friend Leslie said to me this morning, she's like, I'm tired of the fact that lying and being untruthful is acceptable right now. And I said, and I will piggyback on that in saying all this crazy yelling and treating people horribly and all this crap that's on TV. Really? This is what we should be taking in? And whether we realize it or not, you're taking it in. When you are looking at it, you are taking it in.
This is why I don't have a TV.
All right.
I really don't. I'm like, why do I need that in my life? It's just,
It ain't good.
I choose not to. It's just one more thing to have to strain, so I'm like, I'll just take that thing out.
Exactly.
But so I love that we've talked about, diet, we've talked about yoga, certainly other exercise would be good, breathing. What about water? Is water also something that's pretty important to move the processes in our body? Yeah,
and that's a great question. I would like to bring up water as one of several things. Now, we know that for a healthy person to stay healthy, now, Kathy, this isn't going to work if somebody is terminally ill. They're not healthy. But for a healthy person to stay healthy, there's 5 basic things that they have to do, and they all start with proper. And I'd like to talk about the least important first. The least important would be proper exercise and proper sleep.
And that's the least important?
That's the least important.
That's probably good news for a lot of people.
Right, but that means that there's 4 more things that are more important.
Yeah, well,
now,
that's true.
As far as proper exercise goes, the bodies that we inhabit are designed to walk upright. That's what we do different from everybody else.
That's the way we bipeds roll.
Right, exactly. Yeah. When you walk, your tailbone wags. Your tailbone is the pump for your cerebrospinal fluid.
Not just me, but anybody.
Okay. Yeah, good. That's how it's supposed to work.
Okay,
watch your dog walk. Their tail goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay. As you shift weight, your pelvis rocks and your tailbone rocks. That's a pump for your cerebrospinal fluid. Okay. It uses all the big muscles of the body because they're systematically firing on one side, then the other. So we have relaxation and firing going on, and then it switches front to back, side to side.
Interesting.
Okay. Sleep is important for restoration. Everybody understands that. So that's number 5. Number 4 would be proper nutrition.
Okay.
Eating the right things, avoiding the wrong things. Don't get too much, don't get too little.
So exercise, the least important of the 5. Nutrition,
more important
4th.
Than that.
And we got 3 more. They're still more important than both of those.
What could be more important than that? Well, proper hydration, that's number 2.
Okay.
Proper hydration is number 3. Okay. You have to have the water going in. Every chemical reaction that occurs in your body is aqueous-based.
It needs water to happen.
Right.
You've got to give your cells something to work with.
And for those of you at home, if you don't clean your fish tank, you can't see your fish. If you don't change that water over
That's why I don't have fish.
In the fish bowl, things aren't going to go good, and eventually your fish isn't going to go good. More important than that is proper breathing. Now, look, we've all heard stories of somebody shipwrecked, marooned, whatever, trapped in a mine shaft. Boy, they can go 4 or 5 weeks without food. They get skinny, but you feed them and they're doing better. You can go for like a week without water. Man, you're going to be dehydrated, but you'll live. How long can you go? How long can you hold your breath?
Not right now, at this point in my life, not very long.
Right.
No.
We're not going to try an on-air test, I don't think.
No, that's good.
That
Nobody
would really
likes that.
be good for, a radio show that's talking.
But this is very interesting the way you're putting this, because I have never, ever thought about it in that construct. The fact that you cannot go a week without breathing.
Oh, man. No. Most people can't hold their breath for a minute.
Right.
I'm in a rarefied point. I can go a little over a minute and a half.
Uh-huh.
Now he's showing off.
I'm sorry.
Because he knows how to breathe appropriately.
Well, not only that, I was a swimmer my whole young life.
There you go.
Spent a lot of time underwater. So that helps. You think about the deep free divers. Boy, they can go 4 minutes.
I know.
That's crazy.
I think we should have a station identification before we go to number
one.
one.
I'm getting so behind
That's okay.
tonight.
That's all right.
I'm so enthralled in what you're doing.
No.
I'm not doing it.
I'm just thinking we'll make everybody wait.
That you're listening to WVLP LP 98.3 Valparaiso, Indiana. My name is Tracy Traut. I'm your co-host along with Kathy Sipple. Our guest today is Mark Zaranski from East Wind Acupuncture. I'd also like to remind all of you that if you would like to tweet us, you can tweet Kathy at Kathy Sipple, me at T Traut. You can find us, Socially Speaking, on Facebook. Also, we are looking for an intern. So if you or anyone else you know would like to come in and intern with us, you can contact Kathy and I. So sorry to interrupt the flow, and thank you, Kathy,
just
for the reminder.
We're building the excitement about number one. It's the countdown.
I'm supposed to do that at 15:30 and a quarter till, so I'm so enthralled in our discussion today. So
sometimes we forget it's a radio show. We just feel like we're talking to people and getting information, and perhaps that's the way it should be. But Mark, what is number one?
Number one. Well, let me see. 5 was proper movement and sleep, exercise. 4 was proper nutrition. 3 was proper hydration. 2 was proper breathing. Now, number 1. Now, these are the things that a healthy person has to do to stay healthy. Number 1 is proper thinking. Now,
there you go.
Proper thinking. What is meant by proper thinking? Let's look at what the opposite is. Do you know anybody who's totally negative? Just a totally negative person, negative about everything.
I could probably come up with a few.
All right. Are they pleasant to be around?
No.
Does anything good and lasting come for these people?
No.
No. And heaven forbid they're your boss, because nothing good will happen for you either.
Exactly.
Okay.
Attraction.
Right, but we all understand that, and we're all, to a great extent, repelled by that totally negative person, because our natural defensive process says, get away, run away from that. That's bad.
Right.
Okay. If you are that way, you will not stay healthy. You will create a negative environment inside of your body. Things will break down and work in the wrong way, and you will become sick. So, proper thinking, number 1. And it doesn't have to be a Pollyanna attitude. Just avoid negativism.
But watching your personal energy, watching your thoughts. I mean, when you think about, you start getting a fearful idea or an angry idea or, blaming, whatever you want to call it, you can feel your personal energy level drain almost immediately. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's very, very difficult to keep a positive attitude when you're angry or fearful.
Absolutely.
Because you're not really living in the now.
Right.
I could go off on a separate rant on that. But
in the future past, that's where the problem is.
You're never angry about something that's happening in the future. It's the past, or you're never fearful about the past because that already happened. The mystery's gone. You feel fearful about the future. But when you're living in the right now and you can stay in your personal energy space, it's like you usually have everything you need.
That's right.
Is that true? Does
I
this
believe
fit with
that's
your
true.
life view? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Now, what we talked about was what healthy people have to do to stay healthy. Now, Kathy, Tracy, I tell you, most people who come to me, and of course it's because of what I do, they aren't healthy looking to stay healthy.
They're trying to fix something that's over the top.
Right. Things have gotten out of hand, and frankly, at that point, once you're really ill, all the proper exercise, diet, hydration, breathing, and thinking might not be enough to restore proper balance in your body. That's where we come in, or other practitioners. If you can do it without further stressing the body by adding chemicals or physical trauma or emotional trauma, that's a better way, because then you're not making it worse to get better, you're making it better to get better.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. So in our practice, what we do is we move energy and blood with needles and heat. That would be acupuncture and moxibustion. We can also use those.
You better tell people what moxibustion is. I'm pretty sure that's not just flowing trippingly off the tongue of everybody in the audience.
Thank you. Okay. Moxibustion is simply a heating technique, and it predates acupuncture. We have evidence, archaeological evidence, 8,000 years ago that acupuncture and acupuncture techniques were being used. Before that came this heat therapy. Everybody who's ever had a sore back knows it feels good to sit with your back to the fire. Mm-hmm. That heat feels good. Well, you can imagine back in the day, let's say 10,000 years ago, the guys who were working at the end of the day, man, it's cold, I'm tired, I'm going to go sit by the fire. Well, one guy was so bad off he couldn't make it all the way to the fire. Being compassionate coworkers, they said, well, maybe if we took some fire to him. And I believe that was the start of these heating therapies. We call it moxibustion. That's from the Latin, and it doesn't really translate well. But we will burn a specific weed. It's called Chinese mugwort, a specific herb, in close proximity to an area, specifically the same kind of valve points or plexuses, acupoints, if you want to think, that we were talking about, to help control that flow of energy and blood. So those two are the first modality. Diet therapy, herb therapy, and manual therapy, which you could think of as being similar to massage, therapeutic manual therapies. Those are the things that we use most to get that body back to the point of being healthy, so that then you only need those 5 things.
Right. Which is the goal. You know, it's interesting, too, when I was listening to you, I remember I had some fairly serious issues with my stomach. I had what they call a hiatal hernia, where my stomach had sort of come back up through my diaphragm. And it's fairly serious surgery. And the first time they repaired it, we didn't know I had a reaction to anesthesia, and I kind of blew the stitches, and I had to have the surgery repeated. But anyway, the surgeon at the time said to me, you know, you're going to get better and feel better as a result of this surgery, but you're going to get better and feel better as much as you want to feel better.
Goes back to that right thinking, doesn't it?
And I thought that was a very interesting statement, and of course, you know, I wanted to feel better, whatever, but, you know, it goes back to what you just said. You can go through all of this to get back to just being able to do that 5 things, but I really think that if you don't change sort of how you're thinking along with what you're doing, no matter what we do, we're not going to get better. You know, when I let that tension in, I end up with a lump on the back of my left shoulder.
That's right, Tracy. And, you know, really in the work that we do, I don't get me wrong, I like people. But I don't, my intention is not to get a person and keep them. I don't want to keep them as
a little collection.
Right. I don't want them to become dependent on what I do. The way we work is to get people healthy. While we're getting them healthy, we teach them what they need to do to stay healthy, so that once they get to that point, they can maintain this. Now, the fact of the matter is, in almost every case of the people that I see who have advanced enough problems where they actually think that maybe they should go see an acupuncturist because they've tried everybody else.
Right.
What led to their problems wasn't simply like it can be a physical trauma, but usually it's a combination of things. And it has to do with the way they lived life, the things they put into their body, how they thought about things that came to them. All of these things are what went into creating their dis-ease. Now, to get that all cleaned out and then have them go back to that could be very frustrating. In the in the recreational drug world, it's called detox and retox. Go back into the same thing and get back into the same problem. So if we get you cleaned out, and then you simply go and eat all the same crap and slam the same chemicals, what can you expect? The same problem. That's how you got there to begin with. So if we don't make if we don't get through to those people to help them make a lasting change, and typically when people have those kind of problems, they don't want to go back. They want desperately never to get back to that point. But like your surgeon, Tracy, didn't teach you what it is in a different way to live so that you would never repeat what made that happen.
If you don't build new habits, you're likely to fall back on the old behaviors.
Absolutely. And so typically people who come to see us, they'll have a change in their life because now they don't have that thing anymore. They want to keep that, so they will change so they don't go back to the life that they had of polluting themselves or hurting themselves or taking on negative energy or whatever.
I remember when I did Weight Watchers, it wasn't all about getting on the scale. It was imagining yourself in situations where you might be offered a second or third helping at Thanksgiving and trying to think, what am I going to do instead of just sucking it up and saying, okay, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, or okay, let's go to lunch to be social. What else could I do instead? And I'd say that was the most important thing that helped with the program, was exactly that. So you almost need a coach to help you through, number one, knowing that there's a need to do that, and number two, suggesting some healthier behaviors.
I agree.
I'm curious, we do actually have another online question. From Angelina again. So she's our biggest contributor today, Angelina Jansen from Embracing Green Productions, and she is asking, does acupuncture help people to quit smoking? So you've just kind of addressed, addiction or detox. Would it also apply to that type of a thing?
Yes, the things that we do can be very effective in helping people break the cycle of all kinds of addictions. Now, I have to say nicotine addiction is very strong. Many people, let me qualify that a little bit, not necessarily nicotine addiction, but addiction to smoking. Let's put it there, because it's a lot more than just nicotine. People will say that it's harder to get off of cigarettes than it is to get off of cocaine.
Wow.
Yeah. And like the relapse rate is worse, and some of that has to do with availability, certainly. But smoking is a complex thing. First, there's the nicotine, and nicotine is a known addictive substance. It mimics a brain chemical and actually can help people feel more calm. Beyond that, in normal nicotine or tobacco production, many chemicals are added to the tobacco. The manufacturers say they're for taste and burnability, but when you start getting 400 chemicals added to Marlboro Lights, it's a little hard to say that it's really for taste and burnability. And frankly, most of these chemicals are addictive. So they're enhancing the addictive nature. Hey, that manufacturer is there to sell a product. They're not there to be for your health. Nobody has health cigarettes.
They do want to see their clients all the time. They're not trying to get rid of them.
Right, exactly.
They're collecting.
They're collecting.
And then beyond that, there is the manual oral thing, hand to mouth, the oral satisfaction, that kind of thing.
And it's a behavior that probably gets ingrained that's difficult
Exactly.
to
So smoking is a threefold deal. There's the nicotine, there are the added chemicals, and then there's the behavior itself. When we start helping people quit, the first thing we do is switch them to a cigarette that doesn't have any added chemicals. The only one that I know of, and they're not a sponsor, but American Spirit tobacco products are produced on Indian reservations, no chemicals added. So this is a tool that we use in helping people
quit. You're not necessarily promoting that everybody should go start smoking, but if you are, it's a way to step down.
But what I think you're saying is that you're stepping down from the chemicals.
Right. And what that does is that allows that person to still have the addiction to the nicotine and the smoking itself while breaking the addiction to the chemicals. Now, once we've got that completed, then it's simply a matter of breaking the habit and the nicotine addiction. You can break a nicotine addiction in about 3 or 4 days. So that's not too bad. The other chemicals, it's a couple of weeks So somebody's going to need to be switched to these. And frankly, what happens is as they're smoking these, they'll tell me, these must be stronger because I'm smoking less. No, the nicotine addiction is settled in 1 or 2 puffs, maybe even 3. It is those other chemicals in the Marlboro Lights or whatever that are screaming, smoke another.
I do a lot of work with addicted men in terms of emotional regulation. And, when he said it's easier to quit doing cocaine, I mean, one of the things that we also forget in terms of substance abuse is that it's much easier to quit cocaine or injecting heroin than it is to quit drinking or to quit smoking. And the reason is, when's the last time we went to a heroin bar or a cocaine bar? And I'm not being glib. I mean, I think smoking's become less socially acceptable, but it's still, if you're doing it, you still know plenty of people that do. And drinking, it's everywhere. You are bombarded with, cigarettes and alcohol. And so sometimes it is easier to break, but I'm really glad to hear you talk about all of the chemicals that are in there, because it isn't just a piece of rolling paper and tobacco.
If it was, it would be easier to quit, which is why we do that as the first step. I was at a gathering this weekend and saw a friend from a long time ago who has had problems with alcohol, and he said the only reason he was actually able to attend it was an outdoor thing, and he could, it wasn't stuck inside of a bar, because he doesn't find he's capable of staying there. He has to leave. Yeah.
Right. Too much temptation or just the behaviors.
I can't even imagine.
It's just like what Mark was saying. There are many things to smoking, just like there are many things to drinking. And there's a lot of, when you're in there, it isn't just the alcohol, it's the ambiance and the people that you used to be there with. And there is a psychological piece to drinking and smoking that really is separate from whatever the chemicals in alcohol or in the cigarette are. There is a social construct and a psychological piece to that, and it's difficult.
Right.
I can't imagine having to go through that.
Now, to try to get to Angelina's question specifically,
Sorry.
There's a lot of build-up to that, but I mean, there's a method in what we do. Now, as far as actually helping with the addiction, the cravings, the addiction and craving thing for specific foods, for nicotine, for heroin, for opiates, for coca products, it's all the same thing, and we treat them all the same way. One of the most effective has to do with acupuncture on the ear, and there's actually a separate detox protocol that is used throughout the country for just exactly that type of thing. So whether it's at a detox center or if it's at the acupuncturist.
Interesting. And Mark, I just would like to tell our listeners, if they've heard what you've said today and are interested in finding out more, we do want to allow them to be able to contact you and find out what kind of programs, what kind of offers you might have for an introduction.
Well, thanks, Kathy. The first thing is, we always begin the process with a very thorough health history consultation. This goes on for about 90 minutes. Now, we don't charge for this. The reason being, number one, we need to gather that information, but more important than that, we need to use that time to make sure that that person is someone that we can help. We never work on people we can't help. We don't take money from anybody unless we know we're going to be able to help them. We determine that through a large part during that 90-minute consultation. So that's always free.
And you're evaluating whatever their issues are, their willingness to participate in the process, things of that nature?
Yeah. Sometimes people say, well, who would you not help?
Okay.
And that would be someone who refuses to help themselves.
Okay.
Or if there's something that they need to go, like say they have a big railroad spike driven through their knee, we don't remove those things. We have to send them to someone else.
So if somebody was interested in the complimentary 90-minute consultation, how would they contact your office?
The easiest way for the listening audience here, our clinic in Chesterton, the telephone number is 395-9928.
That's area code 219, of course.
Area code 219. Call and make an appointment. Anybody who mentions the radio station when they call for this, we'll arrange it so that if you get to the initial exam, it'll be half price, save $30.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mark, thank you very much for being here. It was great to meet you, and I hope you will come back because we can do definitely another show. Kathy, thanks again for another great show.
Thanks for having me.
Greg Kovach, our station manager, thanks for all your help as usual. And this is Tracy Traut and Kathy Sipple and Socially Speaking signing off. Make it a great week, everybody.